Hi, and welcome to the Book Revolution podcast. I'm Tim.
No, you're not. You're Amanda.
No, you're Amanda.
No, you're Amanda.
I'm Tim.
I'm Tim.
This is the podcast about books and book-related things.
I like book things. I'm wearing book pants.
You're wearing book pants.
I'm wearing book pants. My pants have books on them.
Yeah, I assume at some point you're just going to collect like a whole line of book clothing.
That would be great. I mean, you got me book socks.
I did get you book socks.
I have
You
book
do have
socks and I have book pants. I just need a book shirt to go with it all.
Yeah. I'm sure that's not far behind.
I have a book hat.
You do have a book hat. So all you need is a book shirt.
Gloves, maybe.
And maybe like a book hoodie.
I have a book hoodie.
You have a book hoodie?
Yeah, from the book huddle.
Oh. You just need a book shirt.
Yeah.
And
I have a book tote bag, too.
I
have 2 book tote bags.
I will get you a book shirt just so that you can...
Create an ensemble?
Yeah. And then we'll post a picture of it on the internet.
No.
Of all your book clothes.
Of the clothes, sure. Just not me in them.
So, what are you reading? What have you been reading?
So, I've been in like a reading hiatus recently. I haven't been reading nearly as much as I was for a while there. I've got to pick it back up or I'm not going to make my book goal for the year.
You mean like your 4th book goal for the year?
Yeah. I upped my book goals a few times. But this one's the one that's going to stick and I got to get through it. So, I got to read a bunch of books. So, with that said, I've been starting to read on the Kindle again. I took a break from the Kindle after A Court of Thorns and Roses. And right now I've got 2 going. I started Kill the Beast and The North Wind. Kill the Beast is one of those series of, like, prequel hero-villain stories, classic Disney hero-villain stories. So Kill the Beast is the story of Gaston as a kid.
Okay.
And, like, it's supposed to unveil kind of how he became villain and Hate the Beast.
How he became adult Gaston?
Yeah, how he went from eating 4 dozen eggs to 5 dozen eggs.
I mean, how far are you in it?
20%.
I mean, would it go into, like, how he became, like, a war hero and all that? Because apparently he was, like, a war hero.
It might, because I'm only 20% in and he's, like, 14.
All right.
So it's possible. And then the other one, The North Wind, I was starting up. It's because I didn't realize I had pre-ordered its sequel, but I had pre-ordered its sequel without reading the first book. And the sequel came out mid-November. And so it just like auto-downloaded to my Kindle. And I was like, wait, I didn't buy this book. And I totally did like months ago. So I was like, well, I should probably start reading those then. And I started them, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a romantasy book duo.
Uh-huh.
I think it's only meant to be 2 books. I don't know. But the first chapter or 2 just gave me very much repeat vibes of A Court of Thorns and Roses, and it really felt like I was reading the same book again. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. So I only read like a chapter, and I'll go back to that at some point later.
Is that something that you've run into, like books repeating the same plot lines and within like the same very specific genre?
I don't think I've run into it specifically, but that's probably because this genre I only just kind of fell into this year, and the other types of things that I read, it by nature shouldn't be like that, because like you can't rewrite a horror with the same things, because that's just not the same. You just can't do that.
Right.
I do find that with a lot of the recent Nicholas Sparks books are kind of like that. It's very much rubric-based writing, and it follows the same general plot. It makes sense because he pushes out a book a year or more sometimes, and so he's gotten it down to a science, and they're all popular and they're all decent stories. But when you've read them all individually, they become less interesting because you follow them in the same rubric. If you didn't read all of them like I do, it probably would be okay.
Okay.
But his older books didn't seem to follow that rubric Although maybe I just hadn't picked up on it yet. I should probably go back and reread those and see if they're following the same rubric. He may fall out of my top author list if that's the case. Anyways, what are you reading? You still reading the same books? Has anything changed?
Well, I finished a book.
What?
Yeah, I finished a book.
Well, I don't want to hear about it right now.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it afterwards. But yeah, I did finish a book, and I'm still reading Five Broken Blades, although I've made significant progress on it.
All right.
I'm more than halfway through the story, and now I get why it's like romantasy.
They started fucking.
Only a little. Not everyone yet, but it has happened. And I mean, outside of like my normal reading stuff, I have read again a book called Under the Gold Dome. It's a book about Connecticut politics.
Fun fact, if you put that into your story graph, it'll tell you that it's a reread.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So like in your metrics and your tracks, it'll tell you how many of the books that you've read for the period of time that you're looking at in your graphs, your month, your year, whatever. It'll tell you how many of those were rereads and how many of those were original reads.
Yeah, so Under the Gold Dome, and
That just looks like a textbook.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
This is actually a book written by a judge.
Okay.
And it's called Under the Gold Dome, an insider's look at Connecticut's legislature. And I will review it at the end of the episode.
Okay.
Because there are some things to be said about political science books that people need to know.
This podcast must have a weird arrangement of viewers and listeners, because you're getting some detailed nonsense about political science, and then you're getting romantasy and just fairies having sex.
I mean, both of the books that I read are political science based, so.
I thought you finished.
I finished a book called
the wrestling book.
No, I didn't finish the wrestling book. I finished a book called How Democracy Dies.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you finished the Becky Lynch book.
No, I've made more progress on that too. I'm still reading that.
I feel like the last episode you were still reading Five Broken Blades and the Becky Lynch book. So did you like stop reading those and start reading these books that you just finished?
I had to read Under the Gold Dome for school.
Aha, it is a textbook.
And I wanted to finish the How Democracy Dies because I was so close to finishing it.
All right.
I wanted to have a book finished.
That is good.
So.
Congratulations.
So
let's get another round of applause for you.
Yeah.
I think you've earned it. Books are hard.
So let's talk about our topic for today.
Yeah, what's our topic?
Our topic is going to be books and their fandoms.
All right.
So a good example of like a popular series of books with a fandom that really generates a lot of merch, we'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, it's very polarizing. You're either very much a Harry Potter fan, or you can't stand the author of Harry Potter.
Well, no. Hold on. You can be both.
You can be both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you could be a millennial like us who grew up with Harry Potter and loved Harry Potter. Not like you, but like me. Who loved Harry Potter and read all the... Well, I didn't read all the books because I didn't. But who read most of the books, or all, and watched all the movies and like did all the Harry Potter things. And then you find out 20 years later that the author's a bad person.
Yeah.
And then you can still hate the author. And at that point, you don't spend any more money on Harry Potter that at least goes directly to that person.
Yeah.
But at that point, I mean, let's be honest. We all bought the DVD sets before DVDs were not a thing anymore. So we can all watch Harry Potter without streaming it. And so she doesn't have to get a dime from us anymore.
That's true.
And we can watch it on demand.
I mean, other notable, like, big fandoms for books is, like, Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
They have a big fandom. All the movies.
Yep.
What else is a really big fandom?
I mean, Twilight was a really big fandom.
Yep, Twilight's a big one.
The new ones are the ACOTAR and Throne of Glass and Fourth Wing, all the romantasy books that are making their way around. In fact, there's like a whole segment of memes about, hey, if you were a kid who liked Twilight and Harry Potter, I bet you didn't read for 20 years and now you're reading ACOTAR and Throne of Glass. And they're not wrong most of the time. I mean, I did read in between because I just have always liked reading. But those books did get a lot of people to start reading again.
Yeah.
So I think that a good metric of how, I don't know, either successful or cultish fandoms can be are like what the owner of that intellectual property does with it to make more money from it, or how people spend their money to support that in any way, shape, or form, even if it's not directly to the author or like the movie producers or whoever it was that turned it into anything. But like, there's people on Etsy making crazy volume of bookish merch for fans, either in clothing or in those Stanley cups you see with like the pictures on everything.
Right.
And I mean, the Harry Potter fandom even went as far as there's probably a good, I don't know, 6-figure number of people who have a Harry Potter tattoo on them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, that's a permanent ink that you loved that so much. It's on your body forever.
I think one of the Harry Potter things that is most translatable from like the books to like someone's personal fandom is like what house you're in. Mm-hmm. Like how you identify yourself as a Harry Potter fan. You choose one of the houses, or you
No. You don't choose it. It chooses you. That's not a joke.
How does it choose you?
I mean, the houses are very specific for personality types.
Oh, I see.
Like, you are a house whether you want to be or not.
Is it like a zodiac symbol?
Basically, but the zodiac symbol is purely based on when you're born. The house is based on who you are as a person.
I see.
Like, the traits that are involved. For instance, I'm a Slytherin.
And what are the traits of a Slytherin?
A Slytherin is a competitive person who bends the rules sometimes to get the way they want. They're typically very intelligent people, very driven people, but, you know, they're morally gray sometimes. They'll do what they need to do.
Where would you put me?
I don't know, because I don't know the other houses.
Oh, okay. Well,
I know Gryffindor, and that's not you, because the Gryffindor is like the adventurer, like, I'm gonna fight dragons.
That's not me.
So you're either Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff, but I don't know which one's which.
Which one's like the...
Like, I think Hufflepuff might be like the academic one, and I feel like that's probably you.
Maybe.
But I don't know if that's right.
Maybe.
Tell us in the comments, guys, because
put in
I'm sure everyone here knows what houses are what, and let us know what Tim should be.
Yeah, put in the comments what house you think I am and what house you think you are.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of comments, we got to read some comments at the end of the show about book recommendations that we got.
Yeah. Pencil that down. We'll get back to it.
So let's talk about what your favorite fandom is as a reader. Like, what is the thing that you're most into as a reader, and what, I guess, what's your biggest fandom?
You mean like as a trope or as a specific?
Like, what books get you the most invested? You want to buy the merch.
Okay, but conceptually or actual books?
Let's say conceptually.
Okay. So conceptually, the books that are going to get me to that point are the books that I cannot put down, that as I'm reading, I feel like I'm living in that world. Uh-huh. It is typically another world. It's typically it's not a reality-based book.
Okay. It's
in some sort of alternate universe. It doesn't have to be a fantasy universe. It could be a dystopian universe, or it could be a whatever. But it's definitely not where we currently live, because I live there already, and it's not that great.
What actual book or book series has gotten you to that point?
So I'm such a basic white girl with this answer, but ACOTAR is doing it for me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. ACOTAR has... So, you don't know anything about these books.
That's okay. I'm going to tell you shit that you got no idea about, too, so...
Good. I'll just tune out. Just kidding. So, in ACOTAR, there is seven or eight different courts. I think there's 8.
Okay.
I think there's 8. And each court is its own like universe. It's kind of akin to Guardians of the Galaxy. Each planet they go to is a completely different planet, right?
Okay.
So each court you go to is completely different in one way. So there's a court for every season, and in those courts it's always that season, for instance.
Okay.
So one of the courts is the Night Court, and it has the what are they called? Illyrian Warriors. I don't know if that's a D&D thing. Illyrian Warriors?
I haven't heard of it.
Okay, cool. So it's something finally a character. So, spoiler, guys. Typically, I'm reading these fantasy books, and I try to tell them to Tim and explain what's happening, but I'm trying to explain what a being is. And then he looks at me and he goes, yeah, I know what that is. That creature's in D&D. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. I don't have to explain these things. So that's what that just was. Anyways, they're these Illyrian warriors. They're winged. They're basically like bat people.
Okay.
They're humans, but they have like bat wings. Anyways, a part of their training to become Illyrian warriors is they have to climb this mountain without their powers, without their fairy powers.
Okay.
And that mountain has become a symbol of that court. Like, well, a city in that court. The city is Valaris. And the images everywhere are like the 3 peaks of this mountain with a very specific star set and a moon above it. And it's just, I don't know, that image then brings me back to all the feelings of the things that happen while you're in that city in the storyline. And it's just kind of a reminder of when you were reading that, like, you were having fun. You were having a really good time and you're enjoying yourself. And I feel like that's kind of where a story needs to take me for me to get that kind of invested in a fandom.
Right.
So, for instance, and I think that's probably the most extreme fandom that I've ever been like, oh my God, I love this so much. I want everything to do with this. That wasn't me for Harry Potter. I enjoy Harry Potter. I read the first 5 books, and then the rest weren't out yet. Uh-huh. And by the time they came out, I was out of, I didn't care anymore, which is why I didn't read all of them. But I've seen all the movies many times, and I do like Harry Potter, but I don't like it to the point where I'm going to get the Deathly Hallows tattooed on me like a lot of people do.
Right. And
I don't like it to the point where it becomes my whole personality. Like, yeah, I'm a Slytherin, but I don't own anything that tells me I'm a Slytherin. Like, I don't care about it that much. I don't need the Slytherin pillow or the notebook or the cup or whatever, right?
But for this other series,
I would get a tattoo for this other series.
And you need the pillow.
There's a if I want a pillow, if there's a pillow, find it and I want it. Link it in the comments, guys. If you know of a pillow.
She doesn't need any more pillows.
Yes, I do.
She doesn't need any more pillows.
Yes, I do. In fact, in my wish list is a whole bunch of Etsy just images, like people on Etsy who've created the PNG files that I could use for my Cricut to make my own products, so that I can have everything I want.
I see. Here's the ultimate test, right?
Yeah.
Here's the ultimate test. Would you cosplay as a character from the book? Would you dress up as a character from the book in public?
Define public.
Like, let's say you go to one of your book things and there's a costume contest.
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah, you would?
I would.
Okay. Then that's like, yeah, that's your fandom.
That's my thing.
That's your fandom.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say, for different reasons, I am behind the Game of Thrones fandom.
Oh, yeah. We didn't even mention Game of Thrones, but yeah, Game of Thrones for sure.
Like, I'm not gonna, and actually, I don't know, I would get that tattooed. I would get, like, the Stark Winter is Coming wolf head. I would get that tattooed on me.
Okay.
I sure would.
Yeah, and
I would wear a cloak somewhere if I had to wear a costume contest. I would absolutely cosplay as one of the Starks.
I mean, we have our Christmas tree up right now. There's an Iron Throne on the Christmas tree, so we definitely got the merch.
Yeah, I mean, we have the wine glasses that are etched. We have, like, steins that are etched. We have blankets everywhere. We have keychains. I mean, we're Game of Thrones people for sure.
I think that's, like, our shared fandom.
I think so, too. I think we were able to bond over that, although I read the books and you did not.
I read some of the first one.
Yeah, you didn't read the book. That doesn't even qualify. But it just shows that, like, you can be a just as big of a fan of a fandom
Yeah.
without having to read them.
Yeah. No, that's true, yeah.
But, I mean, you wouldn't get that tattooed. Like, is there a fandom for you that you love so much that you would I'm not saying you would actually get it tattooed, because Tim has a needle thing. He has one tattoo, and he just got it this year, and I'm super proud of him. But I don't know if he'll actually get another one. We'll have to wait. There's, like, a holding period. But what would you... Is there any fandom that you would actually even consider a tattoo for?
Okay. Probably is the answer.
Okay. Tell me more.
This is going to be a different kind of book, but manga. And I don't think we've discussed manga on the
I don't think we have either yet.
So I am religiously into a manga called Bleach.
Mm-hmm. Which has a show, right? I feel like I've heard about that.
Yeah, which has a show. It is probably my biggest fandom.
Okay.
Like, I like Lord of the Rings. I like Game of Thrones. I really like Game of Thrones, but, like, Bleach is almost an obsession.
Why?
I think the nature of the story is what gets, like, I don't like all anime or all manga. It's very specific things that I like.
Okay. And what does it need to have for you to like it?
It needs to have a unique world.
Okay.
It needs to have interesting characters, like really interesting characters. Like some manga, it needs to have a really cool premise.
Okay.
That's the thing that hooks me the most, is something with a really cool premise. And believe it or not, all right, restarting. Yeah, believe it or not, the premise or the main story of Bleach involves ghosts.
You're not a ghost person.
I'm not a ghost person.
Why does that do it for you?
Because...
Is it scary ghosts?
It's not scary ghosts.
Okay.
It's not meant to be scary ghosts, but... So, the basic premise of the book is that ghosts exist, and there's good ghosts and bad ghosts, basically.
Well, that's real life.
Yeah. Sure. And there's the main character. His name is Ichigo. They all have manga's Japanese, in case you don't know. And he can see ghosts.
Okay.
And it turns out that the main character has like special abilities. There are 3 different beings, and kind of like in your story, like how there's different universes.
Mm-hmm.
In Bleach, there's 3 different universes.
Okay.
There's the world of the living.
Okay.
There's 4 universes. The world of the living. There's Waco Mundo, where all the bad ghosts go.
Okay.
And then there's the Soul Society, where all the good ghosts go.
So it sounds like heaven, hell, and...
But then there's a hell. Like Waco Mundo is kind of a limbo
purgatory
kind of place. Yeah.
Okay.
Ichigo has special...
This relates very easily to Catholicism.
Bleach has a lot of religion in it.
Uh-huh.
But it's not strictly Catholicism. There's a lot of Buddhism in it. There's some Catholicism in it. And there's a little bit of, like, other stuff, too.
Okay, so back to ghosts.
Back to ghosts. So the main character finds out that he has the powers of what's known as a Shinigami, or a Soul Reaper. Kind of like a Grim Reaper, but there's a lot of them. And their job is to help ghosts transition to the good place.
Okay.
It quickly turns into like a struggle of good and evil kind of thing.
Okay.
But it's funny that you mentioned the word court in A Court of Thorns and Roses. The Soul Reapers divide themselves up into court guards.
Okay.
So like there's 13 court guard squads, and they all have different roles and abilities in the world and all that. Like, there's a lot of deep lore in the books. There's so many chapters. But it's really interesting because of how deep it gets into the lore of the show and book. And it's really interesting how much symbolism is in it. I actually didn't know how much symbolism was in it until I started watching other people talk about it, like on YouTube or whatever, in their podcasts. Mm-hmm. and they explain all the Japanese symbolism.
What I want to know is what about Bleach makes it something that you could get so behind as your big fandom. Like I said, it's how I feel as I'm reading the book. Like it puts me in a state of an emotion that I want to kind of remind myself almost of by these things that I would purchase or create or tattoo on myself. So I guess what is it about the Bleach story that
I think it's a combination of things. Bleach has a really cool magic system.
Okay.
And
is it a magic system you've never found elsewhere? Like the structure of it?
It's a completely unique magic and power system to anything that I've ever seen.
Okay.
And I really like the way it works because it gives all the characters like their own sets of abilities. Like they don't all use, for the most part, the same powers. They all have different powers.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are like really crazy and unique powers. Also the characters are really good. There's not a lot of manga out there where most of the characters are really good.
Okay.
There's usually the main character is good. There's a couple of good supporting characters, but Bleach has a lot of characters and they're all sort of fleshed out. They're all unique and they bring something to the table. And I suppose the story is very consistent. Like there's callbacks to earlier stuff way later into the series where you get character interactions that like the writer didn't forget about. And I really like that sort of deep understanding of like your own story where you make the callback references.
So you like this is your fandom because the story. Like you like how the story is written or told.
So I will also say...
And you like the characters in it.
Yes, but I will also say the aspect to the manga that you don't get in regular books is it's also drawn.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the art I really like too. Like the art, the character designs, all of that. You get it up front with manga where like if it was a book that was translated to a movie, you kind of have to wait to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But the writer and the artist is his art style is very unique, and it tickles that part of my brain that likes art.
As you've been talking, I think I've realized that you are in love with stories based on kind of the literary value and literary, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like standing almost.
Okay.
Like it's the fully fledged characters that do it for you.
Yes.
It's the consistently thought out plot that does it to you.
Yeah.
And the writing and things. And I find that unique because as I sit here and think, the ones that I'm the most jacked about,
yeah,
it's because the world that it exists in is one I want to exist in.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't really necessarily mean that the story has to be written well.
Mm-hmm.
It means that the characters that I've read, I want to be friends with. And the world they live in, I want to live in. And that's how I get to, like, that like, I literally want to be there.
Okay. And so I will say the one thing that really dragged me into the manga and the show was the villain. Because the arc of the villain is really kind of out of nowhere. It's a surprise that he's a villain halfway through the first major story arc. And he's such a great villain. Like, I've never seen a villain written that well before. And I mean, Bleach is way old. I don't want to spoil things, but it's
You said but don't spoil things.
I don't want to spoil things, but it is something that comes out of nowhere, and it caught me by surprise in reading stuff, and I don't normally get caught by surprise reading stuff.
Okay, but do you want to live in the world?
Yes and no. Yes, because it would be cool to like be a Soul Reaper and have powers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
No, because that world is terrifying. It's one of those worlds where like everything fucking blows up at some point. Like it's not, it wouldn't be a fun world to live in simply because there's so much threat going on all the time.
I mean, the main storyline of ACOTAR is in 4 books. In 3 of the books there's a war.
Well, I mean,
So like, I'm not saying it's a great place to live, but I still want to live there.
I mean, part of
I want to be a fairy and live for 500 years. I want to be able to like fly with these people, even if I can't fly, even if they have to fly me, I can be flown.
In that
I want to live it.
In that regards, yeah, I want to be a Soul Reaper and I want special powers.
All right.
But
I don't want a wand. Isn't that interesting?
That's interesting.
I want the fairy powers. I don't want a wand. Like, I don't want Harry Potter. I don't want to have to learn like spells and like have a wand.
You know what? The other thing that probably draws me in is that the Soul Reapers, their main weapon is a sword.
Oh, you
so
are a sucker for a sword.
I'm really into swords, and like they're very unique swords. Like that's part of their powers is they can transform their swords into like unique designs.
Okay.
So I would like one of the Soul Reaper swords with the powers.
I see.
It seems pretty awesome.
All right.
But yes, that is my fandom, and if I could find something about Bleach that I could get tattooed on me, I probably would at some point.
Is it not something tattooable?
There's a bunch of tattooable stuff. I just don't know what it would be.
I'm gonna look up Bleach tattoo ideas.
I'm pretty sure like a Bleach tattoo idea would be I said the 13 court guard squads. Each one of them has their own symbol.
Okay. So you have to like pick which court guard you want to be in.
Basically.
Do you know enough? Is there enough story of each court guard to figure out which one you want to be in?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you have each court guard has like their own leader, so like they're captains.
Yep.
And so it's basically based on what your favorite captain is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nobody wants to be in the spring court in ACOTAR, so.
I'm trying to think of a court guard that no one would want to be in. Probably the 12th court guard squad because the captain is a...
It's probably because the 12th district is coal mining.
Well, the captain is like a mad scientist type, and he doesn't care about whether or not he experiments on his own people.
Okay.
So it's probably not a fun squad to be in.
Okay.
Because you're up for experiment, because you're going to be an experiment at some point.
So if we piggyback this theory that the popular fandoms are the fandoms where people actually want to exist in, like they want to jump into that book and live there, or jump into that show and live there, then it could be deduced that there's no large fandom for Hunger Games for that same reason. Ain't nobody want to live there.
Well, that's true. And as an aside, I have dressed up as a Soul Reaper at a convention.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should get some applause for that.
I should get some applause for that.
Yeah. Nope, there it is.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought because who would want to live in...
Nobody would want to, at least not in the districts.
No? Maybe District 1?
No, but you still have to go through the reaping.
That's true. So you'd want to live in what, like the capital?
The capital is probably the only, or 13, I guess, but do you really want to live there?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. None of those like big dystopian series. None of those big dystopian series people would want to actually like live in.
Right. And so while they're popular and people buy merch for it here and there, I don't think it ever gets to that level. Like no one's going to create Pan Am as a attraction like they do Harry Potter and Star Wars World.
Yeah.
No one's going to make that as an attraction because no one wants to be there.
Right.
And I mean, I do think people might still get into... a tattoo level with them, but only because of like the things they stand for, right? So if I was trying to think about Hunger Games tattoos, it would be the Mockingjay pin, right? That's the only one I think that makes sense as like the obvious tattoo.
Right.
And I could still see people doing that, but less so because they love Hunger Games and more so because of what that pin in Hunger Games represents.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so it's interesting that there's two different coins to kind of that fandom market. You can love the story and it can resonate with you, but it's not going to be as marketable if it's not a place that people want to just be.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So you gotta create a world that people want to be in.
Yeah. You have to create a world that has something that people desire.
Right.
And I think that that's a really unique thing for an author to do. There's not many of them. I mean, we've come up with 6 or 7 easily.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some that we're not thinking about, or even some that we don't know about. But there's millions of books.
Right, yeah, that's true. Like, nobody wants to live in, like, the 1984 world.
Right, exactly.
Or nobody wants to live in...
Huck Finn, nobody wants to live there.
Yeah. I'm not sure anyone, from what I've read, I'm not sure anyone would want to live in the Five Broken Blades world. Doesn't seem that fun. But who knows, maybe by the end, I don't know.
But like Fourth Wing is that newest series that's been all popular. Yeah. Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and the Onyx Storm book is not out yet at the moment, but it's coming out imminently. Yeah. But that's the same thing. Like, people want to live in there. You know why? Because you ride fucking dragons. You get to ride dragons, and when you pair with your dragon, you get a talent. You get some sort of skill, and you become uniquely like needed for something. Like, that's awesome. I'd do that.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. To become a dragon rider, it fucking sucks. You got to go through this like whole thing, and it's definitely brutal. And I think, I don't know, I forget the metric because I haven't read it in 6 or 7 months. But I don't know. It's like 50% of the kids die who go through this training to become a dragon rider. But if you get to the end of it and you're a dragon rider, you're fucking a boss. Like, you rule that place.
I was gonna say except for the 50% of the trainees dying. It sounds a lot like Bleach. Like, you don't get your sword. Mm-hmm. You get paired with a sword, and you're supposed to, like, the sword has its own soul. So you're supposed to, like, become partners with. Yeah.
It's in something. That's from something else. The soul sword. Like the what's the sword called in Thor?
Oh, the one that makes the bridge?
Yeah, what's that called?
I don't know. I forget.
I feel like it's like a soul sword. Maybe I'm confusing it with the soul stone.
Maybe you are.
What's that sword called now?
I don't know.
Fuck.
I don't know if they ever say what it's called. I'm sure that, like, it actually has a name. Everything in fucking Marvel has a name.
If you know what it's called, write it in the chat.
Yeah. But yeah, well, what I was saying was, it sounds very similar to, like, the training to become a Soul Reaper. Like, you have to be paired with the sword, and then you have to, like, form a bond with it so that you can use it properly.
Well, see, no, this works backwards. You train before you ever meet a dragon.
Okay.
Like, you train, they put you through the training that you would need to successfully mount and ride a dragon. So you have to be able to, like, basically parkour up a dragon.
Okay.
And so you're training for that. You're training for balance so you can stand on the back of your dragon and fight people while flying through the freaking air. Like, you're doing those types of things. They're very, like, strength exercises, agility exercises. You're doing all of that, but not in a safe environment.
I see.
Like, you're doing their entrance into the school, and this isn't even a spoiler because it's in the first, like, 2 chapters of the book, of the first book. But your entrance into the school, like, it's called Basket College, Basket War College, I think it's called, and that's where you go to become a rider. Your day 1, you climb up all these freaking stairs to get into the school, but to get into the school, there's, like, a parapet, like a balance beam.
Okay.
That's up the top of all those stairs at the top of a mountain. Like, I don't know how many miles in the air, but it's in the air.
I see.
And it's a sheer plummet down. So if you ain't got the balance for it, tough shit.
I see.
And they don't care if it's raining. You slip, you die.
I see. Yeah, Soul Reaper training's not as deadly.
No?
No.
No? Well, a lot of these people die.
They go to a school.
They all die.
They go to a school and they learn like the 4 basic like Soul Reaper skill sets, which is magic, sword fighting, hand-to-hand combat, and what was the other one? I think the last one is like fast travel, like being able to move quickly. And
like Flash or like
like Flash.
Teleporting.
It's literally called Flash Step.
All right.
So you learn how to like move super fast.
All right.
And you're given a sword, and
please don't run really fast with the sword.
Yeah, and your part of your training is to like awaken the soul of the sword, and that's how you graduate.
Got it.
I guess.
Got it.
There's not really like clearly defined things on that, but
you graduate Basquiat War College if a dragon doesn't eat you.
Oh, I see.
At the end of the training, you parade in front of the dragons, and one of the dragons chooses you. And if they don't like you, they might just burn you alive or eat you, or you're not supposed to make direct eye contact with the dragons.
So, all right, let me ask you this question, and then we'll have to move on to book reviews. What is it called? Fourth Wing?
Yeah.
Does it have like a really cool hierarchy?
Of dragons or of people?
Both.
Yes.
Because like that's one of the things that gets me in the Bleach is that it's a really cool hierarchy of people. Like it has the hierarchical system is really like well defined, and it's cool to like see something like that.
So I don't know what you define as like cool or really defined. I don't have much experience in like hierarchical rankings and things like that. However, in the Basquiat War College, there's different am I screwing up my books, or is this the right book? There's there's like wings.
Okay.
Yeah, there's wings because it's called Fourth Wing. So the main character is in Fourth Wing, but there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 wings.
Okay.
And each wing has like its segments. Like the wing there's 4 of the college, basically, kind of like Harry Potter and their houses.
Okay.
Is wings. But within the wings, there's rankings, and because it's a war college, you are basically training for a war, and you're in an army type ranking. Mm-hmm. So there's like your general, your leader, and then I don't know what the rankings are of wars, but there's captains and generals and privates.
Okay.
Whatever those things would be. And then the actual like head of the whole army is the person who's the head of the college. But then the dragons have their own rankings also.
Okay.
And since all of the people know that the dragons can murder you, the dragons ranking outranks the people ranking.
I see.
And it's interesting because when the dragon pairs with them, the dragon pairs obviously when you're still a student.
Okay.
But the dragons have multiple riders in their lifetimes because they live longer.
Right.
So most dragons have 2 or 3 riders and then they die. And the dragons pick these young kids, but already have their ranking because they're older and established. And so it's interesting that a dragon who might be a higher ranked person might pair with someone who's not ranked at all. And the humans don't know the rankings unless you are paired with a dragon. Because the dragon and you communicate telepathically. But it's interesting that the dragons outranks. Like, it doesn't matter that one of the characters pairs with a powerful dragon, but she's a nobody. And yet that dragon outranks maybe, like, her leader's dragon.
Okay.
And so she can get away with some things maybe because her dragon has the ultimate say.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that aspect of it. It creates a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah, it creates depth in the world.
It does. And what happens too is that in some cases the dragons are mated, and a dragon that's mated in the world can't be away from its mate for more than like X amount of days, or it feels fatigued.
Okay.
And things like it's an actual like energy bond almost type of a thing with the dragons. And so if your dragon is bonded with another dragon, is mated with another dragon, you can kind of force the hand of the army to station you closer to where your dragon's mate is stationed, and you kind of go as a pair because the dragons have to be near each other.
Okay.
So I don't know, it's interesting. It's the dragons rule part of it and the humans rule part of it, and then and there's just a lot of balancing that happens there, and I don't know, it makes it interesting.
Bleach's is a bit more top down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so at the top. What are we barking at?
Zeus knocked into something and it made a noise, and
I see.
Apollo thinks that means someone's at the door.
I see. Wiggles, get over yourself.
Hey, Apollo. Hi, puppy.
Great.
Up. Yeah, right there. Come on. Come on.
He's
Do
like,
it.
I can't make it. I can't make it.
Do
I'm a
it.
tiny dog.
Do it already. Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, Bleach's, I guess, hierarchy is a bit more top down. Like, at the very top is the Soul King. His job is to maintain the balance of the three worlds. And then he has a royal guard. And then under that is the 13 court guard squads, which also technically protect him. And each court guard squad has a captain and a lieutenant, and then, like, seated officers. And then there's just, like, the rest of the squad. The main character is actually not a part of the hierarchy, which is what makes him unique.
Okay.
He, as a human who is also a Soul Reaper, he's considered like a substitute Soul Reaper. That's what they call him. He's outside the hierarchy. He's not like official.
Okay.
So he doesn't have to live within that hierarchy, but through him you get to observe it all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rather complex for a manga,
Mm-hmm.
or for any story really. It's very complex. And like I said, that's the kind of stuff that draws me in, is like complexity of story.
All right.
I guess to finish out the topic, you know, I know everyone has their own fandom. Anime and manga may not be for some people.
Romantasy isn't for some people.
Yeah.
Although it sounds like I might make a convert out of you. I would like to know from our listeners if there's a fandom that's massive in your world that we have not even considered.
Yeah, that's true. Like what's
not on our radar, or what have we forgotten about?
I'm sure there's something like big that we know that we've forgotten about.
There's got to be.
Because we didn't mention Game of Thrones until halfway through.
Yeah. I'm sure there's things that we've missed. I'm curious. Like, do you have a tattoo? Let me know. Do you have a tattoo from a fandom?
Yeah.
And what is it? And why? Why did it matter so much that you wanted to get it inked on your body?
Yeah.
Because I'm certainly about to, like, start a half sleeve that's not really just about ACOTAR, but it's certainly going to have, like, Valaris and probably, like, a dragon from Fourth Wing, because both of those places, let's fucking go.
And, yeah, I could speak for literally hours about the characters and the lore and all that stuff of Bleach, because it's ridiculous.
All right, well, maybe we should find someone who loves Bleach as much as you and ask them on as a guest, and you can have a whole episode about Bleach. And I'll moderate it and try to, like, figure out why.
So let's move on to books that we have finished and want to review.
All right.
Do you have anything, or?
Yeah, so I think that the last time we spoke, I was starting to read Demon Copperhead.
Okay.
And I finished that, I don't know, like 3 days after we filmed that, or recorded it.
Right.
That book was amazing.
Yeah?
That book was so absolutely, I hesitate to say it, but I think it was perfect in every way.
Wow.
It was absolutely a must read. And I think that it's something that is good for most people. As long as there's not triggers in it for you.
Okay. So 5 stars?
Oh, 100%. 5 stars. 6 stars out of 5. Like, it was just so good. And I can't even, like, it's not any one thing that got it that place. You know? It's just, it told a story, and it had nuggets of truth and pieces of nostalgia from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it follows Demon Copperhead. It follows a boy whose name is not Demon Copperhead, but that's his nickname. And his life growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And it covers negligent parents who are addicted to drugs. It covers very poor Southern living.
Mm-hmm.
Very poor Southern living. It covers the start of the opioid epidemic in America. Like, it covers the start of Oxy being a thing of abuse, and kind of follows loosely where that came from.
Okay.
It takes place in a community that was a former coal mining community, so it's a very poor community, and I don't know. It spoke to me. It resonated about the hardships this person had to go through. This child had to go through. It's meant to be a modern day telling of David Copperfield.
Are you sure you want to spoil that?
No, that's on the that's on the dust jacket.
Okay.
That's on the dust jacket. I've never read David Copperfield, so I did not know what I was getting myself into.
Okay.
I probably want to go read it now because this was so good, and I know that it's supposed to be the modern day retelling of David Copperfield, which tells me that might be a more meaningful book than I ever gave it credit for.
Okay.
And then I'll know, I guess, if that is a spoiler, but it is literally on the dust jacket. It's not a spoiler.
Okay.
It was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal, and I highly recommend it to anybody. It's a heavy book. Not in terms of like page. I mean, it's a big book too, but it's heavy in terms of content. Like, it's a dark book to read. You definitely want to follow it with something light and fluffy. But it's so worth your time. It is so worth your time.
All right.
What about you? Let's hear about this fancy book that you actually finished reading.
So yeah, I have 2 books. I'll talk about Under the Gold Dome real quick. Under the Gold Dome is a book about Connecticut politics. It was written, I want to say 2008. It's basically like an overview of how Connecticut's political system works. It's written by Judge Robert Satter. And aside from being about politics, it's a little dry. Like, it's very factual.
It literally looks like a textbook, so
yeah.
It's not a surprise that it's dry.
But if you ever wanted to know how state politics works, it's a good book to read. I would give it like 3.5 stars, only because he could have like jazzed it up a little.
Just based on the cover, for those of you who follow our story graphs, the rating Amanda would give it is probably a 1-star DNF.
And the other book that I read is called How Democracies Die. It was written in 2018. It is a book about how fascism can seep into democracies. And it's like half historical account and half what if. So
are we in the what if scenario right now?
Oh, we're well past the what if scenario.
Ooh.
We're there. Sorry, that's a political opinion. No, it's half about like how fascism seeped into like Italy pre-World War II, or some South American countries during various revolutions, or Turkey, or any Eastern Bloc country after the fall of the Soviet Union. Like, it's sort of this is how we measure a struggling democracy, and this is how to prevent it from falling into fascism. It's a very well written book. It's not very long, which is good, because at the time that I was getting towards the end, I'm like, I've had about enough of this. I would give it 4 stars. I would recommend that if you're interested in politics, that you read it, regardless of what your political affiliations are. Like, it's not really a Democrat-Republican book. It's more of a let's keep
political
an eye on
systems.
this. Yeah, political systems, and let's keep an eye on what's going on, sort of thing.
All right.
Oh, and the very last thing we got to do is we have book recommendations from listeners that we have to read.
Let's read last show's comments.
So our first comment, and by the way, like and subscribe on YouTube on the Bin Network, where you can see or hear the podcast. A comment from Billy Kershaw 2781. He says, Eric Newby, Love and War in A Pennies. If you don't like it, I'll send you money.
So I think that I looked this one up, and it seemed like a nonfiction.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it goes on your TBR.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It goes onto your TBR.
Oh, it goes onto my TBR?
Yeah, because it's nonfiction. I'm not going to give it a... I'm going to do a fair attempt for the guy, because I'm probably not going to like it.
Okay.
Just by the nature of the genre.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
So you give it a shot, and I'll read it also. Maybe. I've got a lot on my TBR. I might read it. I might read the first chapter. You get it to read, I might read the first chapter, and if I like it, I might read the whole thing.
Okay. And then we got a couple comments from episode 1 by the same person. Going back to the fandom thing, he says, Lord of the Rings is more than just a book. He also says, I can recommend My Song by Harry Belafonte, the first chapter. And the photo of him and MLK Jr. backstage at MSG, never realized the part he'd play. And he said he read the box set of Game of Thrones books. Can't remember how many there were. Never seen the show. They seem like an experiment in storytelling, creating characters and destroying them, more than an exercise in expectation management.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
The Game of Thrones books, there are 5 of them right now? 5.
I think there's 5. There's a 6th one that's supposed to happen but never will.
There's supposed to be 7 or 8.
Well, we're never getting
them, but there are 5 published right now. I agree. It is kind of a experiment almost in creating characters to destroy them. However, what I will say is in the completed story arc that's in the show, the destruction was all purposeful.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know it when it's happening, but there is purpose behind it all. And it makes me really want the rest of the written story so bad, because it would give me so much more closure, I think, in what was destroyed.
Right.
I do recommend, what was his name?
Billy Kershaw 2781.
Billy Kershaw 2781. I would recommend, if you've read the books, give the show a go, because the books just drop and they leave you at a cliffhanger, and you're never going to get that closure, because George R. R. Martin is writing other books because he can't be bothered. And while the show definitely doesn't conclude the way the books are supposed to, because there are changes to the storyline between seasons 1 through 5, which are books 1 through 5. But it at least gives you closure, and it does tie up the story. And when you get to the end, like I said, the destruction starts to make sense. Maybe not all of it, but the big stuff starts to make sense.
All right, so, leave comments in the episode, whether you're listening on YouTube or on Spotify. We're on Spotify now.
What?
Yeah.
That's big time.
You can subscribe on Spotify and listen to all our episodes.
We're big time now.
We're big time. But yeah, comment, leave your book recommendations, let you know what you think of the episode. And
give us topics, too.
Yeah, give us topics.
We're coming up with these things just based on, life and conversations that we have. But if there's something you want to hear about, or like a topic you really love about books and you want our take, let us know what you want us to talk about. We'll throw it in.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time on the Book Revolution podcast.